of the provision of sewerage facilities to some 4,500 households within the regions of Pérébert and Cap-Malheureux. The project is partly funded by the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, and partly by the government of Mauritius. Following an international bidding exercise conducted by the Central Procurement Board, the contract was awarded to joint venture Henan Water and Power Engineering Consulting Company Limited and Anhui Xuan Construction Group Company Limited on 8 July 2019 for a duration of 33 months with a contractual completion date of 19 March 2023. The works are being supervised by consultant Gibb Mauritius Limited in association with Nihon Suido Consultants Japan Company Limited and Jacobs Engineering UK Limited. The project has been heavily impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic with travel restrictions due to closure of borders in China and the lockdown and closure of borders in Mauritius in 2020 and part of 2021. I had expressed public concern on the delay encountered on the project during the course of a site visit carried out on 26 August 2021. The attention of the contractor has been constantly drawn to the delays and its contractual obligations. Subsequently, several meetings were held at the Ministry and the Wastewater Management Authority with the project consultant to monitor progress and facilitate the process for importation of foreign labor with a view to deploying adequate labor force to catch up on the program of works. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Wastewater Management Authority has informed that on 29 August 2022, the contractor has issued 3 notices of termination of the contract pursuant to clauses 16.2, that is termination by contractor, and 19.6, that is optional termination, payment and release of the contract. The effective dates mentioned were 6th and 13th September 2022. The notices have been examined by the project consultant and the legal counsels of the Wastewater Management Authority, as well as the Attorney General's Office, and will be dealt with in accordance with the provisions of the contract between Wastewater Management Authority and the contractor. I am informed that as at end August 2022, the progress of works on site stood at 23%. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Wastewater Management Authority is working closely with the project consultant so that the contractor completes priority works in the coming weeks. It will be ensured that there is no hazard to the public. Such priority works typically include safety measures on site, reinstatement of trench road private premises, and addressing of complaints. Both the project consultant and the Wastewater Management Authority are following up on the contractor's action plan to complete the said priority works. In parallel, the Wastewater Management Authority, in consultation with the project consultant, has initiated procedures for completing the unfinished and outstanding works with the relevant catchment areas with a view to putting the existing infrastructure to beneficial use. Such works include completion of the construction of pumping stations and wastewater treatment plants, household connection, and other civil works. These would require fresh procurement exercises which would be carried out in accordance with the Public Procurement Act 2006. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also wish to add that discussions have also been held with the representatives of JICA who were on mission to Mauritius from 13th to 14th October 2022. They have been apprised of the status of the project and the way forward. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can I ask the Honourable Minister, what was the original contract sum and what is the revised contract sum if it has been calculated by the authority in order to complete the 77 balance of work remaining? Because Minister has said 23% was completed as of now.
I do not have with me the revised sum, but I can give the following information. The works contract amount was 2,088,253,916, excluding VAT. That is for Lot 1 for a sum of 1,992,950,181, excluding VAT, and for Lot 2 for the sum of 95,303,735, excluding VAT. The amount spent to date is as follows. For contract WW230C, that is consultancy contract, 99,9,632.99 cents, excluding VAT. Contract WW302W, that is works contract, for an amount of 491,388,584.80 cents, excluding VAT. That is for a total amount of 590,398,217.80 cents, excluding VAT.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister has mentioned that a meeting was recently held with the representatives of JICA. Obviously, the price will go up because construction cost has gone up tremendously since COVID. Has JICA agreed to meet the increased costs in order to complete this project in terms of loan provision?
We have discussed a lot of issues with JICA, and this also formed part of the discussion, but we will have further discussions with JICA in order to finalize those issues, Mr. Speaker, sir.
This project was implemented in the backdrop of environmental concern because this region is known to require such a network. Can I ask the Honourable Minister what is the time frame that the Ministry has looked up to in order to complete this project?
Yeah, the project is already delayed, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I've explained the reasons. We have with us where the contractor has been able to complete works, where works are remaining. Understand that the Wastewater Management Authority is working on a new revised program of work, and this also has not yet been finalized, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. B1011, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the current bilateral fishing agreements between Mauritius and Seychelles was signed on 14th April 2022 for a period of 1 year. I wish to inform the House that a delegation from the Republic of Mauritius, led by myself, met representatives from the Republic of Seychelles in February 2022 in Victoria to discuss the extension of the then existing agreements, which were to expire in April 2022, and also to begin negotiations for new fishing agreements. After discussion, it was entirely agreed to enter into interim agreements for a period not exceeding 1 year and negotiate a new agreement once the interim agreements have been signed based on a new fee structure. Mr. Speaker, sir, my ministry will shortly initiate negotiation with the Seychelles counterpart with regards to the conditions to be attached to the new reciprocal fishing agreements that are expected to start as from April 2023. The negotiations and the new fishing agreements will be hosted and signed in Mauritius.
Can the Honourable Minister provide or table to this House this new fishing agreement that has been signed? Can same be tabled?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. Okay.
And can the Honourable Minister confirm whether sea cucumber exploratory fishing is part and parcel of this new fishing agreement?
It has not yet been included in the agenda because with regard to the GMA, it is being looked upon by the Prime Minister's office.
Next question. B1012.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to thank the honourable member for having addressed this question on COVID-19 vaccination. Indeed, vaccination has been one of the key factors in our fight against COVID-19 and has enabled our country resume its economic activities in various sectors such as tourism, education, among others. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius was among the first African countries to launch COVID-19 vaccination campaigns. The country sourced various vaccine types and gave regulatory clearances to accelerate the vaccination rollout. In fact, Mauritius is among the first African countries to reach a vaccination coverage of more than 70% of the population. Mr. Speaker, sir, the high vaccination coverage in Mauritius benefited from strong leadership, highest political engagement with the high-level committee under the chair of the Prime Minister, strong involvement of the World Health Organization, collaboration and support of the healthcare staff, private sector, and other key stakeholders. Today, we have already achieved 91.8%, that is the first dose. It means 1,040,511 doses of vaccine. For the second dose, 880,953, meaning 88.8%. And the first booster dose being 654,242, meaning 65.4%. And the second booster dose being 17,213, that is 1.7%. It's also worth to point out that Mauritius is among the few African countries where the second booster dose is being administered. COVID-19 vaccine provided protection for a certain period of time, and it's time to thank the frontliners again and again. Time to justify additional budget for allocated to pay extra time for the vaccination, and not like some were saying, flouting government fund. They deserve public service excellence, and that's what was given to them. That's why, although there has been a decline in the reported number of COVID-19 cases, government is engaged to pursue its vaccination campaign in order to safeguard the health of its population. Mr. Speaker, sir, our vaccination campaign continues to be the backbone in our response against COVID-19. The booster dose campaign is still going on, and all persons who have not yet received their booster dose are being encouraged on a daily basis to get their vaccine at the regional hospitals or vaccination centers around the island. In reply to part A of the question, the following COVID-19 vaccines are available for administration as second booster dose. 115,150 doses of Johnson & Johnson and 68,248 doses of Sinopharm. Mr. Speaker, in reply to part B of the question, since the launching of the second booster dose campaign on 13th April to 12th October 2022, 17,213 persons had already been administered a second booster dose of COVID-19 vaccine. The expiry dates of the vaccines administered are as follows. Pfizer vaccine, 15 October 2022, Moderna vaccine, 13 and 15 August 2022, Johnson & Johnson vaccine, 15 December 2022 and 31st December 2023. Sinopharm vaccine, 5th June 2022 and 10th August 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to Part C of the question, I'm informed that as at 12 October 2022, 16,807 persons had already been administered the Pfizer vaccines as second booster dose. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can I ask the Honourable Minister, considering the low uptake of the second booster dose, as he just mentioned, of a figure of 17,000 representing approximately 1.5% of the population, the second booster having been so a poor uptake for so many reasons, can the Minister inform the House as to why vaccines with usage well before expiry dates were not ordered, since ₹2 per litre of fuel were already being levied since the last budget for same?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to get the question again, please.
Can you repeat your question? The question is, can the Honourable Minister inform the House as to reasons why vaccines with usage before expiry dates were not ordered, since ₹2 per litre of fuel were already levied since the last budget for the same purpose?
So I try to understand the question. So why these vaccinations were not ordered before the expiry dates? In fact, all the vaccinations that we ordered and we received, and there are many vaccines that we receive as donation, they were all vaccines that were not expired. So they were all vaccines that have been ordered. So according to the vaccines, the expiry date that we have. So this is very standard. I think it's good to mention over here that most of these vaccines have been given an extension of the vaccination, the date of vaccination. Just to briefly mention, because I believe that will get out the confusion. So the vaccines having the expiry date, there has been a communiqué. That is the first extension given by the World Health Organization. They issued a communiqué in respect of the extension of the shelf life of unopened Pfizer vaccine from 9 months. Originally, it was 9 months, and then it was extended to 12 months. So we got some extra time again to use the same vaccine. And there is a second extension being given now that is not yet approved by the vaccination committee. So on 7th October, this month, approval was received from the manufacturer for a second extension of the expiry date of the Pfizer vaccine for another 3 months. Why this so happened? We have to understand. This happened because, in March 2022, around the world, more than 240 million doses of anti-COVID vaccines had passed their expiry date since the start of the vaccination campaign. So there was a huge quantity of vaccination already expired, the date was expired, and this not only in the national stocks of rich countries. Of these, 73% were doses of Pfizer vaccines, the most widely used vaccine in the northern countries, and the second most wasted vaccine being AstraZeneca. So what happened after that? So there was in October, there was some, how at the beginning when vaccines were approved, at that time of approval during the winter of 2020 and 2021, the stability data of the products marketed were limited during that time, and recalls the European Medicine Agency. And in that time, the stability studies were based only on 3 batches of clinical trials. So there has been limited studies on these vaccines. And given at that time the urgency, these products were nevertheless authorized. Then with time, they got more information on these vaccines, and then they were able to extend the vaccination, that is a shelf life of these vaccines. So obviously at that time, vaccines were procured based on the shelf life, and we were given extra, we are given now the extra shelf life that we can use these vaccines. I believe I've answered your questions, because your question will be met on why we had these vaccination, why they were the amount of vaccination at that time being procured. This is an international scenario. It's not only in Mauritius.
My second supplement, you just mentioned that 16,000 out of 17,000 persons who had the second booster dose were given Pfizer. And Pfizer falls within the remit of those vaccines that their shelf life had to be extended, either by way of communique, either by way of statement, either by way of scientific data analysis. Can the Honorable Minister, at least, has he made consideration, considering the various reports that are coming out over the last couple of weeks with regard to bona fide vaccines now, about the side effects? Has his ministry considered an automatic recall of recipients should they develop undue symptoms, or more importantly, any medically adverse data that may, and I say that may come up in the future with regards to vaccines whose shelf life have been extended? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, there is already the Pharmacovigilance Committee only for COVID-19 vaccination. So this committee has been following all the adverse effects due to vaccines, due to COVID-19 vaccines since the very beginning. And you know from the very beginning, to administer more than 3 million doses of vaccines, how there was some strict guidance about it, even from the consent form to the administration of the vaccines, and even now beyond with the Pharmacovigilance Committee following all the adverse effects on vaccination. Till date, the report that I have, according to our report, there has been no adverse effects following immunization so far. So the vaccination, the Pharmacovigilance Committee will continue to monitor. So such event will happen. Obviously, there would be an official communique on such and such type of vaccination. Now, let's see probably the scenario, the international scenario, or the WHO recommendation. No one is just saying that there can be adverse effect due to vaccination, even if there has been an extension of the shelf life.
Mr. Speaker, so it has already been canvassed just now.
Honourable Utim.
Being given the fact that the low number of people getting the second booster dose and the high number of vaccines that are expiring, may I know from the Honourable Minister whether there is any plan for importing even more vaccine, or is the decision now taken not to import any vaccine for the time being?
Obviously, so we all agree that the uptake of vaccination, especially for the second booster dose, has gone very low because of obvious reasons. Because of the, the impact of COVID-19 in terms of death has gone down, but yet there is still a situation where we've got to monitor closely. Because maybe you know from the news what's happening. There are resurgence of cases. There are different variants of Omicron coming. So we have to keep this vigilance on what's going to happen next. We are going through the summertime, but in Europe it's going through the winter time, and we don't know what is expecting at that time. So probably yes, we have to keep on encouraging people to do their second booster dose, keeping in mind that we are going through that phase, but we have to see what's going in Europe or in other countries where you may have a mutant or some other kind of variants which can be very, infectious as well. We don't know what may happen. So it's very careful to monitor the vaccination, especially in what's happening in the international scenario. So let's just wait for some more time before we can rest assured that situation is going to be very calm.
Last supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the reassurance of the general public and the health professionals as well, will the Honourable Minister table the WHO note and that of the manufacturers of respective mRNA vaccines, confirming the safe use of same past the shelf life dates? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, I was expecting this question to be. I've already get it for table.
Next question.
B1013.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that the decision for the construction of a retaining wall at Lalmani Street, Crèvecoeur, emanated from the complaints of the inhabitants after cracks were identified on the road. Subsequently, an investigation was carried out by the landslide unit of the National Infrastructure Division, which revealed a localized erosion of the road structure, probably seepage of subsurface water from the mountainous area and households, and any landslide issue was immediately ruled out by the experts. In order to mitigate further deterioration of the road, the NDU issued a works order to Square Deal Multipurpose Cooperative Society for the construction of a retaining wall of a stretch of 200 meters following a bidding exercise to the tune of 14.2 million. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to invite the Honourable Member to refer to the reply I made on 10th May 2022 to her question B554, in which the description of the project was given in details. I'm informed that the contractor is Square Deal Multipurpose Cooperative Society Limited, after having prepared the reinforcement works of site, mobilized on site on the 4th October 2022. Excavation works started on the 5th October. However, on Thursday, 6th October, the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Center reported a case of road collapse at Royal Road, Crèvecoeur. Consequently, my ministry conducted an urgent survey at 8:30 p.m. to take cognizance of the nature of the problem and thereby advise the NDRRMC and residents on the precautionary measures required. The affected area, which consisted of 3 residential houses, were cordoned, and the residents were requested not to occupy their houses pending an in-depth assessment of the structural stability of the affected area and the houses concerned. Subsequently, 2 site visits on 7 October and 11 October 2022 were undertaken in the presence of the representative from the Special Mobile Force, the National Development Unit, the National Infrastructure Division, the Road Development Authority, the Central Electricity Board, the Central Water Authority, Mauritius Telecom, District Council of Pamplemousse, the consultant Lux Consult, and the contractor Square Deal. The purpose of the visit was to agree on the urgent remedial measures to be taken for restoring the level of safety on the affected site, pending the implementation of appropriate remedial works to reinstate the collapsed road. Mr. Speaker, sir, after in-depth technical discussions with all the stakeholders, the following measures were taken. Firstly, for the 3 premises at risk, the police and the NDRMC have sensitized the families to evacuate their houses, especially in case of heavy rainfall, and seek refuge at the Crèvecoeur Social Welfare Center. However, they refused to do so. Secondly, I'm also informed that discussions were held with the local police for transport facilities on 7 October 2022. And thereafter, the contractor is willingly providing transport facilities for the inhabitants who have to cover a longer distance to the bus terminal. Thirdly, it is to be noted that NDU has already secured the site and backfilled the excavated site with boulders and excavated materials. Fourth, rerouting of overhead CB cables and 3 CB poles have been completed. No issue has been reported with regard to the disruption in electricity supply and telecommunication services. Fifth, the contractor is presently working on the recommendation of the consultant. As such, the construction of the new road structure over a stretch of 50 meters with the integration all services will be completed by end of November 2022. However, it is to be noted that the construction of the remaining 150 meters will not be possible under the present works order for the following reason. Poor ground condition, which represent a high risk to the local inhabitants and workers, The current design for the retaining wall needs to be reviewed, warranting acquisition of private land, whereby resulting in significant increase in the scope and cost of the project. And lastly, the NDU will arrange for a full assessment and photographic survey of all houses within the surrounding of the affected area before engaging in other works. The National Infrastructure Division will conduct an in-depth survey of the whole area, and the police is providing regular patrol in the area. Mr. Speaker, sir, the response of the inhabitants so far has been positive to the action initiated so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Minister inform the House whether there is a close monitoring and follow-up of works currently going on to ensure prompt completion of this project, as the Minister will appreciate that this project has been delayed and the inhabitants are facing major predicament?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that there has been delayed in the project. As I've already replied in the last question on the 10th of May. And as I've already mentioned, there has been a series of different measures that has been taken by the police, by the National Infrastructure Division, by the consultant. The whole design is being reviewed, and those 50 meters where there has been, the road has collapsed will be completed by November 2022. And the engineers of the NDU are permanently on site to ensure that these delays are respected.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'd like to ask the Minister, he has mentioned about a survey being carried out. Can he confirm to the House that it is a geotechnical survey which is being carried out, and if yes, how long it's going to take, just to ensure that the inhabitants feel safe over there? Thank you.
No, Mr. Speaker, sir, as I've said in my reply, that there was no need for geotechnical survey. Before we started the work, the landslide unit has already did a survey of the region. And ruled out any landslide issue. And what has happened, what has happened in Krivka is more erosion due to seepage of water. So not to endanger the stretch, this is why we are reviewing our structure, the structure of the retaining wall.
In his reply, the Minister mentioned an in-depth survey for the whole region of Crèvecoeur. Can he give an indication of the expected date of completion of this survey, and whether this survey is intended to find a holistic approach for the various flood problems within Crèvecoeur?
No, Mr. Speaker, sir, I've mentioned that the NDU is arranging for assessment and photographic survey of all the houses concerned. At this stage, we are only concerned with a survey regarding those 200 meters where there is a problem regarding Lalman Road. But obviously, as a matter of policy, wherever there is water accumulation problem, the LDA is considering a holistic approach to remedy the problems.
Next question.
B 1014. Monsieur le Président, le contrat de prêt entre la République de Maurice et l'AFD a ainsi été... Ah, excusez-moi. Je remercie l'honorable membre pour sa question. En 2020, la pandémie de la Covid-19 a frappé le monde entier sans exception. Maurice n'a pas été épargné et nous avons dû nous confiner à 2 reprises. Cette sombre période a été marquée par de grandes incertitudes tant au niveau national qu'international. Dans ce contexte, le gouvernement, sous le leadership de notre Premier ministre, a pris les promptes et courageuses décisions pour faire face à cette crise d'une magnitude jamais observée. Notre première et principale priorité était de protéger les moyens de subsistance de tous les Mauriciens avec une attention particulière pour les personnes les plus vulnérables. Pour atteindre l'objectif fixé, l'une des actions clés du gouvernement a été l'introduction et la mise en œuvre rapide du Wage Assistance Scheme,
du Self-Employed Assistance Scheme et du Self-Employed One-Off Grant. Monsieur le Président, les dépenses totales au titre de ces programmes de soutien ont atteint les 27 milliards de roupies et ont bénéficié à plus de 542 000 salariés et travailleurs indépendants. Au regard de ces dépenses importantes mais nécessaires, il nous fallut trouver des fonds pour financer la réponse historique du gouvernement à la pandémie, dans le but, je le répète, de protéger et soutenir la population. C'est dans ce contexte que mon ministère a exploré plusieurs options de financement. Nous avons ainsi exprimé notre intérêt à l'Agence française de développement, l'AFD, pour un soutien financier sous la forme d'un prêt de contingence de 300 millions d'euros utilisant l'instrument Catastrophe Deferred Drawdown Option, 4 DDO. Monsieur le Président, le contrat de prêt entre la République de Maurice et l'AFD a ainsi été signé le 27 juillet 2020 pour un montant de 300 millions d'euros. Il a été contracté au taux concessionnel de 1,12% pour une durée de 20 ans avec une période de grâce de 10 ans. L'objectif du prêt est de mettre en œuvre un programme consistant à améliorer notre résilience économique et sociale, ainsi que la gestion des catastrophes sanitaires et naturelles à Maurice. Maurice ayant réalisé toutes les actions préalables, le montant total de 300 millions d'euros a été déboursé en une seule tranche le 30 juillet 2020. Les actions préalables étaient structurées autour de 3 piliers, à savoir la réponse sanitaire aux crises et le renforcement des systèmes de santé publique, la réponse économique et sociale, avec un renforcement de la planification économique et de la résilience, et le renforcement de la résilience climatique. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Monsieur le Président, l'Agence française de développement finance et accompagne des milliers de projets dans une centaine de pays, et ce prêt exceptionnel accordé à Maurice traduit l'engagement de l'AFD, mais cet engagement implique, j'en suis certain, une responsabilité de notre pays de fournir des rapports d'avancement avec des indicateurs de réalisation des différents projets financés. Puis-je demander au ministre combien de rapports de suivi ont été fournis à l'AFD depuis 2 ans, avec les moyens mis en œuvre, les entreprises retenues, les dépenses effectuées et les résultats obtenus, et si ces rapports peuvent être déposés à la Chambre?
Monsieur le Président, encore une fois, je remercie l'honorable membre de sa question. Il peut comprendre que je n'ai pas toutes ces informations disponibles avec moi, mais je serai heureux de déposer à la Chambre les informations concernant les différents rapports proposés et envoyés à l'AFD.
Make sure your supplementary question aim at having clarification. Continue.
Le ministre a mentionné le taux d'intérêt avec une période de 10 ans, qui est une période de moratoire, si j'ai bien compris. Donc, le remboursement commencera en janvier 2031 jusqu'en décembre 2040. Et selon les calculs, il s'agit d'une somme de 15,5 milliards de roupies qui sera à être remboursée, en considérant le capital et les intérêts. Puis-je demander au ministre s'il a déjà travaillé un plan de financement de remboursement de cette dette extérieure, ou s'il a signé cet accord en laissant à son successeur d'après la charge de planifier le remboursement?
Cette question, il est vrai, est importante parce qu'en tant que ministre des Finances et en tant que gouvernement responsable, à chaque fois qu'on fait des prêts, il y a les deux côtés d'un contrat. Il y a celui qui emprunte et celui qui aussi débourse les fonds. Et je peux vous assurer que de ce côté, l'AFD regarde et analyse la situation, les données, la capacité de rembourser avant de venir avec ce genre de contrat. De notre côté, au niveau de la gestion des finances publiques, Maurice n'a jamais, et je le dis bien, jamais, peu importe le gouvernement, raté une seule de ces remboursements. Rien que pour cela, on est classé comme un des meilleurs clients pour les institutions financières. Donc oui, on a travaillé dessus et ce ne sera pas un problème pour Maurice de rembourser.
Next question, Mr. Rabin.
B1015, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I shall reply to PQ B1015 and B1051 together. At the outset, allow me, Mr. Speaker, sir, to remind the House that the St. Paul junction and the junction at Savoy were already experiencing heavy congestion prior to the implementation of the Metro Express project. As these two junctions are located within 100 meters of each other, the traffic condition has always been challenging. With the construction of the Metro Express project, the existing traffic network had to be reviewed and reconfigured. In this context, a technical committee consisting of my ministry, including the TMRSU and the National Land Transport Authority, the Metro Express Limited, the police, the Road Development Authority, and Larsen & Toubro Limited, RIGHTS, the consultants, the Minister of Housing and Land Use Planning, and the municipalities of Cupip and Vakwa worked out a traffic master plan for Vakwa and Cupip. This traffic master plan at the design stage took into account the complexity of the traffic setup at all junctions, including those at St. Paul and at Savoy. This new traffic configuration is based on the results of the traffic analysis as well as the traffic simulation exercises carried out by the contractor over time. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a result, all the road-rail intersections along the alignment have been enhanced and are controlled by traffic signal priority system. A reconfiguration of the overall traffic movement and reduction of conflict points at these junctions, as well as providing safe pedestrian crossing phases, have been implemented. In addition, traffic signs have been placed at all strategic locations to guide road users and drivers, namely as regards alternative routes and unauthorized right turnings. Prior to the launching of Phase 2C of the Metro Express project, that is, the launch operation of the Metro Express proceeding from Phoenix to Cupip, flyers on the new road configurations were distributed to road users, drivers since the third week of September 2022, and the distribution was intensified on week prior to the official launching. The new road configuration was advertised on the social media as well. In addition, on Friday, 7 October 2022, prior to the launching of Phase 2C, the Metro Express Limited, together with the police, communicated this new traffic configuration on the MBC TV. Sir, drivers and road users are taking some time to get used to the new traffic configuration. It has been observed that the traffic congestion in the center of Vakwa is exacerbated due to the fact that drivers are not complying to the traffic instructions on the information panel and the traffic signs. Some drivers, especially at the CB junction and the St. Paul junction, were engaging into banned right turn movements, and in addition, road user drivers are not fully using the alternative roads as indicated on the information panels. Mr. Speaker, sir, any new traffic configuration put in place has to be monitored, further assessed and fine-tuned. In view, therefore, as from Monday, 10th of October 2022, the TMRSU and the Metro Express Limited, together with the Municipal Council of Vakwa Phoenix, the police, the TMRSU, Larsen & Toubro, RIGHTS and CAF, conducted several technical meetings, site visits and monitoring of the junctions at St. Paul and Savoy, from the Vakwa police station straight to the Savoy cinema and from La Cavéenne to the Vakwa CB office to look into other possible traffic measures to improve the fluidity of the traffic at this location. Drone surveys are also being undertaken by the TMRSU during peak hours. Micro-analysis of the junctions in Vakwa, namely St. Paul Road, Swami Sivananda Avenue, near CB office, and Swami Sivananda Avenue, Stevenson Road, have been undertaken by L&T Limited for Metro Express Limited in view to optimize the capacity of each of the signalized junctions, taking into consideration the additional phases to accommodate the metro and pedestrians. The following corrective measures would additionally be implemented in the short term to alleviate the congestion. The new traffic signal is being modified to merge two phases of the traffic signal priority system to reduce the total cycle time and provide additional green time for traffic along St. Paul Road coming from La Cavéenne to Savoy Junction. The total green time will be increased from 12 seconds to 25 seconds. Secondly, traffic signals are being synchronized at the different junctions, namely Savoy and CB, to allow for more fluidity of traffic. All junctions are monitored by the police, who is also enforcing the traffic procedures and instructions. I am advised that additional police officers have been deployed along the major junctions and on the road from Cupip to Vakwa at strategic locations to guide drivers on alternative roads to reduce the congestions. Double yellow lines have been applied to prevent unjustified parking along the Swami Sivananda Avenue and St. Paul Road. And finally, after the launching of the Phase 2C of the Metro Express project, additional explanatory campaigns and precautionary measures to be taken were disseminated on MBC TV, the public and private radios, Info Route, and the social media by Metro Express Limited, LNT Limited, the police and the TMRSU since 11th of October 2022. Intensive sensitization and communication on the new traffic schemes would continue during the next few days, as was done for the other previous phases of Metro Express project, to assist road users in acclimatizing themselves with a new traffic scheme. The distribution of informative flyers has been further extended to road users and drivers. Mr. Speaker, sir, further to the site visit I carried out with all stakeholders at different locations in Vakwa Town Centre, it has been agreed that further additional measures would be implemented to alleviate the traffic congestion as follows. To alleviate the traffic congestion as follows. 1. The Avenue de l'Indépendance will be converted as from Savoy Junction up to Vakwa Bus Terminal into a two-way road up to Sivananda Avenue. This new measure would be implemented on Independence Street during morning peak hours. If this measure is conclusive, it would considerably reduce the traffic road at the junction of Swami Sivananda Avenue and St. Paul Road. Secondly, Avenue de l'Indépendance would be widened near Vakwa Bus Terminal and would then be converted into a two-way traffic, and cars will be able to join Sivananda Avenue, and in the long run would also run towards Palmerston. The bus terminal would be slightly shifted to the right. Thirdly, the CEB junction would be further modified to increase capacity. Some traffic islands would be removed on St. Paul Avenue to improve fluidity of traffic. Fourthly, additional information panel and traffic signage would be placed to guide road users and drivers on the optimum routes to their destination. Parking bays, fifthly, parking bays at the new Sivananda Avenue would be eliminated, as two park and ride facilities for around 400 vehicles are available at Vakwa. And sixthly, road improvements works along St. Paul Floreal Road, along St. Paul Floreal Road and Nalitambi Road works will be effected shortly for the widening of the road. Intensive sensitization and communication on the new traffic schemes would continue during the next few days, as was done for the other previous phases of the Metro Express project, to assist road users in adjusting themselves with the new traffic scheme. My ministry, through the TMRSU, in collaboration with MEL, the police, RDA, and all relevant authorities, are monitoring the traffic situation, not only in Vakwa, but also in the surrounding areas such as Floreal, to observe and understand the road users' adaptation and behaviors in relation to the new traffic setup and implement any required mitigation or improvement.
Yes. May I ask the Honourable Minister if he could table the traffic master plan that he has mentioned in his answer for us to follow up as to the time frame that will be adopted to alleviate those traffic congestion in Vakwa, please?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the master plan, as I answered in my question, Mr. Speaker, sir, at a design stage, it took into account the complexity of the traffic setup at all junctions, and also with time, of course, this master plan was reviewed and readjusted. So it depends at which precise time the honourable member would like to have a copy of this document. because it evolved. You know, we adjusted it.
As it is, for us to follow up.
Yes.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. J'accueille favorablement l'option de rendre la route de l'indépendance à double sens afin de permettre aux automobilistes de rejoindre directement la gare de Vakwa. Monsieur le ministre, dans les régions rapprochées de Charles-Renaud, d'Épinay, Farquhar et Köpiprod, il y a 5 établissements scolaires. Et depuis l'aménagement du métro, plusieurs routes sont dorénavant à sens unique et la largeur de certaines routes a été réduite, rendant la vie des automobilistes et usagers de la route très difficile. Le ministre pourrait-il indiquer à la Chambre si son ministère pourrait considérer d'organiser un site visit dans l'urgence avec tous, je dis bien, tous les députés des circonscriptions numéro 15 et numéro 16 et tous les stakeholders afin de trouver des solutions durables, vu que nous avons été sollicités par nos mandants. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I have no objection to welcome all members on both sides of this House to join me in a site visit regarding the traffic difficulties that QPIP is experiencing at that time, if there are any. But as the honourable member would realize, my question was focused on the situation in the centre of Vakwa. So either she comes with a substantive question with regard to QPIP, or we can think about this future visit to QPIP to have a look at the possible solutions in case there are the congestion to which she made reference. Traffic congestion, finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, is a problem, is the result of economic prosperity. The amount of new vehicles that are coming on our roads every year, and even during the COVID periods, we noticed that more or less the same number of cars have been imported into the country. And that is why government is investing heavily on the decongestion program. But as I said, any new traffic configuration, Mr. Speaker, sir, has to be reassessed, monitored constantly.
Future Prime Minister.
Thank you. Thank you for your good wishes. May I, in the given circumstances, can the Minister, Honourable Minister, consider the police presence at all times to be able to monitor the traffic and see to it that there is fluidity at the centre of Vakwa?
I'm so sorry, Mr. Future Prime Minister. Can you please repeat your question?
He said.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you for your good wishes. In the given circumstances, can the minister consider the presence of the police to monitor the fluidity of the traffic?
Yes.
Because at all times this is the best solution until the master plan works.
No, this is a perfectly relevant question, Mr. Speaker, sir. As many police officers we have on our roads, especially during peak hours, of course, this would alleviate the difficulties of the travelling public and the drivers. As I just said, yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, I personally organized a site visit in this region, and we were accompanied by many police officers. And in fact, this new measure that we are taking, making of Independence Street a two-way traffic road, as I said, is being done on a pilot basis. And of course, we need the help and the presence of police officers in order to be able to monitor this new situation. And of course, we impressed upon the police when we organized this visit, Mr. Speaker, sir, that their presence is a sine qua non condition of alleviating the traffic problem in this area of the center of Aqua.
Next question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. B1016.
Monsieur le Président, avec votre permission, je répondrai conjointement aux questions B1016 et B1060, puisqu'elles portent sur le même sujet. Et je remercie l'honorable membre pour ces deux questions. J'ai été informé par Statistics Mauritius qu'un protocole d'accord, c'est-à-dire un MOU, a été signé entre Statistics Mauritius et l'Assemblée régionale de Rodrigue en août 2021. Ce MOU établit un cadre de collaboration entre Statistics Mauritius et Statistics Rodrigue pour améliorer le système statistique de ce dernier. Dans ce contexte, Statistics Mauritius a retenu les services d'un statisticien à la retraite, M. YT, et non M. YS, pour entre autres évaluer le système statistique de Rodrigue, identifier les besoins des utilisateurs et les questions émergentes qui préoccupent les parties prenantes, ainsi que pour faire les recommandations appropriées. J'ai également été informé que l'amendement du système statistique actuel permettra un calcul précis du PIB de Rodrigue et la détermination de la contribution fiscale de Rodrigue dans l'économie de la République de Maurice. Monsieur le Président, j'ai en outre informé qu'un plan d'action a déjà été élaboré. À cet égard, le directeur intérimaire des statistiques a prévu une visite à Rodrigue le mois prochain. Il s'entretiendra avec le Island Chief Executive et le personnel de la Rodrigue Statistic Unit pour assurer la mise en œuvre efficace du plan. Les recommandations du plan d'action comprennent la fourniture d'un cadre légal au niveau des règlements de l'Assemblée régionale de Rodrigue pour le système statistique de Rodrigue, l'établissement des dispositions institutionnelles et une structure organisationnelle appropriée dans les différents départements pour la collecte de données statistiques pertinentes pour leurs activités, la mise en place et le maintien d'un programme coordonné pour la collecte et le flux efficace d'informations à tous les niveaux du gouvernement, s'assurer de la bonne collecte de données agricoles par la cellule statistique dédiée dans l'unité agricole et la mise en place d'un mécanisme approprié pour la saisie des données commerciales de Rodrigue qui seront utilisées pour la compilation de statistiques commerciales complètes et fiables. Effectuer un investissement approprié en termes de ressources humaines et d'équipements pour la mise en œuvre du plan d'action, la fourniture d'un cours de statistique au personnel de la Rodrigue Statistic Unit ainsi qu'aux employés des autres départements s'occupant de la collecte de données statistiques, la formation de la Rodrigue Statistic Unit au logiciel statistique approprié pour le traitement et l'analyse statistique des données relatives aux enquêtes, l'assistance et la formation pour la Rodrigue Statistic Unit dans le cadre de nouvelles tâches nécessitant des compétences spécialisées et la mise en place d'un mécanisme de reporting pour suivre et évaluer l'avancement des travaux 2 fois par an. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Honourable Minister, at the stage of this present project, inform the House the time frame that will take for a project to finalize, if possible?
Je déposerai à la Chambre le time frame approprié par rapport aux recommandations du plan d'action.
At this stage of this project, would the Minister be able to inform the House about the revenue of Rodrigues, the amount of money we contribute in the economy of the Republic of Mauritius, and its expenditure?
Monsieur le Président, c'est le projet qu'on est en train de travailler. C'est réellement de travailler pour voir la contribution de Rodrigue pour la République de Maurice en termes de PIB, mais aussi comment à ce moment-là pousser pour l'amélioration du produit intérieur brut de Rodrigue et aussi à ce moment-là pour la République de Maurice.
Next question.
B1017.
Nano?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am advised that previously the traffic center of Pointe Sable was situated at La Pointe. The locality of La Pointe is served only by buses of Triolibus Service Limited along Route 51 from Immigration Square to Pointe Sable. As from August 2020, following the construction of a new traffic center at Petit Verger, which is located at a distance of 2 kilometers from La Pointe, Route 51 has been extended, and all buses henceforth operate from the new traffic center. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable PPS, Honourable Doreen Chakourir, raised the same issue with me and made some representation with regard to the siting of the new bus shelters. I am informed that following a survey carried out by my ministry in June 2020, 2 pairs of bus stops have been sited along Petit Verger Road, B31, so as to enable the alighting and embarkment of passengers. These bus stops are located between the old traffic center and the new one. With regard to the construction of 4 bus shelters at the mentioned bus stopping places, I am apprised that following the survey, the land requirement has already been identified. However, in view of budgetary constraints, the bus shelters could not be fixed last year. My ministry has initiated actions for the construction of these bus shelters during this financial year. The bus shelters will be implemented at the locations as soon as the contract is awarded.
Thank you. Has there been any risk assessment that has been done, a risk assessment? Because actually all the bus stops are in front of a 1 meter depth drain, and you have only 80 centimeters of road side for people who are standing there in a road where people drive at a speed of 60 to 80 kilometers per hour. Has your ministry done any assessment before putting this bus stop on the, I'm talking about the 2 bus stops that you just mentioned from La Pointe to Petit Verger?
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, if the honourable member is suggesting that mitigation measures need to be taken, I will gladly consult the TMRSU and pass on the comments that have been made by the honourable member with a view to see if any corrective measures have been taken, will be taken in need of changing the site of these bus stops. It will be up to the experts to finally inform us whether we should proceed with the bus shelters at these bus stops or change the location of the bus stops.
Additionally to the survey that you just mentioned, can I know whether the survey really determined the needs of the inhabitants, the requirement of the inhabitants, because most of these bus shelters are very far away from the residential building, and it's very far, the walking distance from the residential area to the bus shelter is quite far. And will you consider as well to add 1 additional bus shelter next to London Supermarket?
The suggestion by the honourable member will be addressed by the TRMSU, the Speaker, sir, and it will be up to the Traffic Management Safety Unit to finally take the decision. If what the honourable member is proposing is reasonable, I see no reason why the authorities would not consider that proposal.
Next question.
B1018.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in September 2019, my ministry came up with the new consolidated consumer protection scrap metal regulations to make provision for 2 types of permits and 2 types of licenses in the scrap metal sector, namely the scrap metal collector permit, which is issued to scrap metal collectors for the collection and sale of scrap metal, the scrap metal carrier permit, which is issued to scrap metal carriers for the transportation of same, the scrap metal dealer license, which is issued to scrap metal dealers to allow for buying and selling of scrap metal, and the scrap metal exporter license. As at 13th of October 2022, there are 21 scrap metal dealers registered with the ministry. I'm tabling the list of
I thank the Honourable Minister for his answer. Would the Honourable Minister consider coming up forward with a policy decision maybe to regularize everything that's called scrap metal? Because I'm sure we have all witnessed people stealing from houses and carrying scrap metals on the road in trolleys, which seems to be quite dangerous, as well as it's giving rise to the number of theft as well. So could the Honourable Minister consider to regularize this type of business? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, unfortunately, it is for the government to take such a policy. I cannot take it on myself to regulate the sector.
Next question.
1019. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius is not a member of the executive board of the UN World Food Programme. However, in accordance with the rules and regulations, any country member of the FAO may attend the UNWFP Executive Board. The Honourable Member is making reference to my mission in Rome in June 2022. The purpose of my mission was to meet the Director General of the FAO, as well as the Assistant Executive Director of the World Food Programme, both headquarters being located in the FAO, in Rome. With regard to the breakdown of the cost of the mission, I am tabling the document thereof.
Next question.
Yes, so the minister is confirming that he did attend the executive board meeting of the World Food Programme, whereby Mauritius is not a member. And can I know for what reason?
We are not a member of the that executive board. However, whenever there is a meeting of the executive board of the WFP, Mauritius is invited because any member of the FAO can attend the meeting and participate, but without the right to vote.
Invitation? The invitation that he has received, can the Honourable Minister table the invitation?
The invitation was sent to our mission in Paris and the cover of a note verbal, correspondence from the WFP. Please find here and there an email from the Secretary of the World Food Programme informing of the annual session of the Executive Board, which will be held from 20th to 24th June in Rome, Italy. The provisional agenda of the meeting is attached. It would be appreciated if mission could be kept informed, etc., etc. And then there is the provisional agenda, and there are other correspondences. We can table it. I don't know what is the first.
The question is sufficiently canvassed. Let's move on to the next question. Honorable Wuchit.
B1020. B1020.
Alors, entre secrétaire général, on peut se parler dehors.
The next question, Honorable Gobin.
Ah, yes, sorry. So, vegetables. The House will appreciate that the price of agricultural produce is determined by supply and demand, Mr. Speaker, sir. Crop production and volume of supply will vary according to season, and of course, wholesale price is dependent on available volume at a particular time, grade, and quality of produce. There are periods of low and high availability of produce which lead to fluctuations in prices, and fluctuations also happen as a result of higher markup charged by the wholesaler or distributor as well as the retailers. The gap may be attributed to reasons such as transport, labor, allowance for losses due to spoilage and unsold quantum of produce, as well as the cost of distribution to increasing number of retail outlets. This adds up to the whole distribution chain, which is reflected in the retail price. With respect to part A of the question, crop production is planned so as to address the issue of erratic supply. In that respect, a planned production committee has been set up and is chaired by the senior chief executive of the Ministry of Agro-Industry. The Extension Services of the Food and Agricultural Research and Extension Institute is responsible to monitor the level of production across the country. The principle of availability, affordability, and sustainability has been adopted by the said planned production committee, and I believe the result is visible. My ministry is also working extensively to train farmers and SMEs to undertake agro-processing to increase the shelf life and to add value to their produce. This is clearly visible by the increasing number of SMEs operating in the agro-processing sector. The House will appreciate the increase in the number of sheltered farms in the country, and this has led to better control of pests and diseases, leading to, in turn, higher yield and quality. With regard to part B of the question, I wish to inform the House that the operation of the national wholesale market has been attributed to the Agricultural Marketing Board. The objectives of the national wholesale market are A, the creation of a modern marketing infrastructure for the handling of fruits and vegetables, which would be compliant with relevant legislation, agricultural and food norms and standards. B, to improve the financial livelihood of the planters. C, to provide quality produce at an affordable price to the consumers. And D, to ensure more transparency and traceability of the source of agricultural produce traded thereat. The building has already been handed over to the Agricultural Marketing Board. There are a few outstanding works to be completed, and these are currently underway. The national wholesale market would start full operations once these outstanding works are completed. I am hopeful that by the end of this year, the operations will be launched.
Whether the government is aware that each year the local production of vegetables and fruits is decreasing, and as Minister of Agro-Industry and Food Security, what step is being taken to ensure adequate production of these vegetables, and at the same time to maintain the price to be affordable to the common people, which is not the case of today?
No, I will not agree that the production, I will not agree with the sweeping statement that production has decreased. For some products, it may have decreased, but for others, that is not the case. This is why there is this planned production committee, and also there is the balance which is done between local production and imported products, so as to fill the gap as and when required.
Whether the government is aware that unavailability of market for perishable fruits and vegetables has forced farmers to indulge in distress sales, leading to a reduction in the price of perishable vegetables, and if so, has the government formulated any scheme or regulation to prevent distressed sales or any other step that the government has been taken to develop any model market for the sales of the perishable commodities?
Yes, there is indeed. This is the very foundation of the creation of the national wholesale market. Furthermore, as the House will appreciate, in this year's budget, guaranteed price has been announced for products of strategic importance, such as potatoes and onions. So this leads to a guaranteed price. The farmer already knows in advance what will be the minimum price which the Agricultural Marketing Board will offer. So my advice to farmers is not to engage in distressed sale. Sell to the AMB because they know what is the minimum price, and that price now is, sans précédent, has been increased once again, precisely within mind to reduce the distressed sale. So, and I understand what the honourable member is saying, distressed sale happens on the farm. And I always tell the farmer, you only need to organize with the Agricultural Marketing Board and you will get a better price.
As you just said, whether the government envisage to open more warehouses to store both imported and local products?
We have to understand that the Agricultural Marketing Board is in itself a warehouse with cold room. Then secondly, we will have the national wholesale market. Once the operation will start, and then we shall reassess the situation to see whether other facilities will be required in other regions of the country.
Next question. Nganu.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the official residence for use by the High Commissioner situated at Bramham Gardens in London is owned by the government of Mauritius. The property, which was purchased in 1984, had several issues relating to the heating system, electrical installations, and lately with the piping network dating back to several decades, leading to recurrent water leakage. In 2019, it was decided to proceed with major refurbishment works on the property. The High Commissioner was therefore relocated to a rental accommodation at a monthly rent of 7,735 UK pound sterling.
Yes. Is there any report from any surveyor or any expert to suggest that the High Commissioner's residence is not habitable, as said by the Honourable Minister?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, in October 2019, a tender exercise was effected, and I can inform the House, unfortunately, only one bid was received, and this bid was not retained as it was 155% higher than the cost estimate. Our mission in London and the Ministry have been engaged in consultations since that time regarding the upgrading works, but unfortunately, because of COVID-19 and unavailability of funds for the years 2020 and 2021, the works have been delayed. And I must inform the Honourable Member that provisions have been made in this budget for the launching of tenders for consultancy services for the renovation of the official residence.
Yes, thank you. 2019 to 2022 is 3 years down the road. Can I ask the Honourable Minister whether he finds it normal for heating system, electrical installation, and piping network to be repaired? It takes so long?
I think I had already anticipated the question of the Honourable Member. That's why I said that since October 19, a tender exercise was effected, but unfortunately only one bid was received and it was not retained as it was 155%, 155% higher and the cost estimate. So from then, the mission in London and the ministry were engaged in consultations with regard to the upgrading works, but as we all know, Mr. Speaker, sir, COVID-19 pandemic came, and due to the unavailability of funds for 2020 and 2021, the works have been unfortunately delayed. And this is why for this financial year, provisions have been made in the budget for the launching of tenders, for the consultancy services, and the renovation of the official residence. The documents, I must inform the Honourable Member, have already been prepared, and the process for relaunching a fresh tender exercise has already been initiated.
Question sufficiently canvassed. Table is advised that CQB 1022, B1059, B1063 have been withdrawn. Next question.
B1023.
Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the core functions of the Special Education Needs Authority is to register special education needs institutions, their teaching and non-teaching staff, as well as any other resource persons working thereat. In this context, a call for registration of all SEN institutions and their staff was launched on the 16th December 2021. The Special Education Needs Authority also constantly reminds all SEN institutions that they need to get all their staff duly registered with the authority in accordance with Regulation 3 of the SENA, Registration of the Special Education Needs Institutions, Regulation 2021, GN number 28 of 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed that the Society for the Welfare of the Deaf had recruited their orthophonist on the 2nd May 2022, but did not inform SENA about this recruitment. It is only after the occurrence of the deplorable incident, which was reported at the School for the Deaf, that the authority was made aware of this recruitment. The onus for informing the Special Education Needs Authority of any recruitment and to seek registration thereof rests upon the NGO or institutions as per the regulation referred.
Sachant que la Special Education Needs Authority Act a été proclamée depuis 2018, l'honorable ministre peut-elle nous dire quand est-ce que le directeur a été recruté et quelle est son expérience dans l'éducation spécialisée?
In a minute, I'll just give you the information. The director was recruited in, I'll just let you know, the director was recruited in September 2022. In September 2022.
Quelle est son expérience, s'il vous plaît, dans l'éducation spécialisée?
He's a senior lecturer at the Mauritius, he was a senior lecturer at the Mauritius Institute of Education and has a qualification in special education needs.
L'honorable ministre peut-elle nous donner la garantie que depuis cet événement malheureux, elle s'est assurée que tous les professionnels exerçant dans les écoles spécialisées sont effectivement enregistrés aujourd'hui?
Mr. Speaker says this has already been done, and we have also organized workshops to inform and train all teachers and carers in the special education needs school, as well as their managers. So as soon as we came to know about this sad incident, a number of actions have been taken at the level of the authority to ensure that we enable and empower these NGOs to better cater and help our children.
Next question.
B1024.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed by the Wastewater Management Authority that the CHA Chamarel comprises 2 blocks with a total of 9 houses each. I'm further informed that complaints have been received regarding the problem of overflow at the site. Under the current system, the domestic wastewater and surface runoff of the residential CHA units drain into an existing septic tank located at the backyard of one of the inhabitants. The overflow of the effluent from the septic tank onto a state land has been the cause of the complaints. Even though the CHA Chamarel site is not managed by the Wastewater Management Authority, the latter has provided assistance through pumping of the septic tank on several occasions to mitigate sanitary and environmental nuisances. Mr. Speaker, sir, site inspections were carried out by the Wastewater Management Authority in June 2019, and recommendations were submitted on the way forward in July 2019 to the District Council of Black River. One of the recommendations was to identify a plot of land so as to construct a new on-site wastewater disposal system. In view of complaints received and delay encountered in the implementation of the project, a high-level meeting was held on 8 September 2021 at the District Council of Black River, in the presence of honorable members of the National Assembly of Constituency number 14, representative of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development, the Ministry of Housing and Land Use Planning, and the Wastewater Management Authority. At a meeting, the Wastewater Management Authority was requested to consider wastewater connection of the concerned houses at CHA Chamarel. Given that the region of Chamarel is remote from existing public sewers under Wastewater Management Authority's operation and maintenance responsibility, it was not considered feasible nor sustainable to maintain a wastewater network for only 9 houses thereat. It was thus proposed that the Wastewater Management Authority would construct an on-site wastewater disposal system at Cité CHA Chamarel, and it would operate and maintain it with the financial contribution of the District Council of Black River and the Ministry of Housing and Land Use Planning. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed that the Wastewater Management Authority has worked out the details of the sewerage project, which will comprise the following. 1, the construction of about 16 meters sewers from the existing CHA estate to the plot of state land proposed by the Ministry of Housing and Land Use Planning. Construction of a septic tank of 15 meter cube effective capacity. Construction of an absorption pit with plan area of about 50 meters squared and depth of 4 meters, and construction of a chain link fence with 2 chain link gates. Financial clearance to the tune of 3.5 million rupees for the Wastewater Management Authority to undertake the project has been obtained on the 20th of April 2022. I am informed that procedures to acquire reliefs have been initiated by the Ministry of Housing and Land Use Planning, whereas procedures for compensation to private landowners have already been initiated by the valuation departments. Bids will be launched by the Wastewater Management Authority once clearance for reliefs have been obtained. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Supplementary. Next question. Next question.
B 1025.
Mr. Speaker, sir, taking into consideration the high prevalence of non-communicable diseases in Mauritius and the toll it takes on the population in terms of comorbidities and death, the Honorable Prime Minister made the fight against NCDs one of the top priorities of this government. In fact, our Prime Minister has shown strong commitment during the 77th session of General Assembly of the United Nations in New York last September in combating NCDs and its complications. The 7th Mauritius Non-Communicable Diseases Survey was carried out in October and November 2021. The overall objective of the Mauritius NCD survey was to determine the prevalence and study the trends of risk factors of cardiovascular diseases and diabetes, hypertension, overweight, obesity, tobacco, alcohol, and physical activity. Mr. Speaker, sir, the findings of the Mauritius NCD Survey 2021 reveal the following. First, a small decrease in the prevalence of type 2 diabetes in the Mauritian population aged 25 to 74 years from 22.9% in 2015 to 19.9% in 2021. Second, a decrease in the prevalence of prediabetes from 19.6% in 2015 to 15.9% in 2021. Third, among those people known to have diabetes, the metabolic control of their diabetes as judged by blood glucose levels was moderately poor, although the proportion has decreased from 35.6% in 2015 to 31.7% in 2021. Fourth, there was a better diabetic control among the population as the level of HbA1c has decreased from 35.6% in 2015 to 31.7% in 2021. Fifth, the prevalence of hypertension has stabilized to 27.2% in 2021 compared to 27.3% in 2015. Sixth, a decrease in the prevalence of overweight from 39.4% in 2015 to 36% in 2021. Seventh, a decrease in the prevalence of obesity from 45.5% in 2015 to 36.2% in 2021. Eighth, a decrease in the prevalence of high cholesterol level from 44.1% in 2015 to 34.8% in 2021. The prevalence of smoking has decreased from 19.3% in 2015 to 18.1% in 2021. 10th, the prevalence of harmful alcohol consumed was 15.4% in 2021. It is to be noted that in 2015, prevalence of alcohol consumption was based on any consumption of alcohol, which cannot be compared to the current survey. In fact, harmful alcohol consumption is defined as 3 drinks per day and or drinking more than 2 to 3 days per week. 11th, the percentage of persons undertaking physical activity during leisure time or more than 30 minutes per day has increased from 23% in 2015 to 40.2% in 2021. 12th, the prevalence of albuminuria has remained stable from 6.8% in 2015 to 6.3% in 2021. 13th, the prevalence of asthma in adults has decreased from 9.8% in 2015 to 7.5% in 2021. And 14th, the 10.8% out of participants eligible for retinal screening, that is, those with diabetes or newly diagnosed with diabetes, was found to have any grade of retinopathy in one or both eyes. Retinal screening was not undertaken in the NCD surveys of 2015. Mr. Speaker, sir, several measures had already been taken, such as promotion of physical activity and exercise. The awareness sensitization mechanisms have further been reinforced to address the issues mentioned in the NCD report. The planned communication campaign includes the following. Health promotion campaigns have been organized in the compound of commercial centers, shopping malls, district councils and municipal councils across the island during Saturdays. Setting up of health promotion clubs in ministries, departments in collaboration with the Prime Minister's office to encourage public officers to practice regular physical activity and adopt healthy eating habits. Screening conducted for early detection of NCD and their risk factors at work sites in communities for adults aged 18 years and in secondary school for students aged between 12 to 17 years old. Sensitization and health education campaigns throughout TV and radio programs. TV programs named Priorité Santé is being broadcast every week for 26 minutes. Special TV program known as Tout Correct is being mounted in collaboration with the Prime Minister's office with the aim to sensitize the population on NCD and to decrease the number of people suffering from NCDs. Another TV program named Minute Santé based on nutrition and healthy lifestyle will be introduced. A new radio program named Mauritius Con ou la Santé will be aired in Creole and Bhojpuri language. So these are the measures that have already been taken.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House of the different stakeholders which participated in the NCD survey?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. So this NCD survey of 2021 was carried out in collaboration with Monash University of Australia, University of Helsinki of Finland, Umeå University Hospital of Sweden, Baker Heart and Diabetes Institute of Australia, Imperial College of UK, and World Health Organization, the stakeholders.
The table is advised that PQB 1046, B 1054, B 1032, B 1042, B 1062, B 1031, B 1033, and B 1070 have been withdrawn. Time is over.
Motion.
Motion.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move that all the business of today's order paper be exempted from Section 2, paragraph 10 of the Standing Orders.
The question is that all business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it.
Statement by Minister.
Statement.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I wish to make a statement apprising the House of the latest developments regarding Mauritius compliance with the Financial Action Task Force FATF recommendations. The House will recall that in December 2021, the Virtual Asset and Initial Token Offering Services (VITOS) Act was enacted. During my intervention in this August Assembly on 10th December 2021, I stated that the VITOS Act was essential to support the re-rating application of Mauritius for FATF Recommendation 15, which is on new technologies. Today, 10 months later, I'm pleased to announce the House that Mauritius has been successfully upgraded to largely compliant on this recommendation at the Eastern and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group, ESAMLAG, meetings held in Livingstone, Zambia in September last. With this technical compliance upgrade, Mauritius is now compliant, or largely compliant, to all the 40 FATF recommendations. Mauritius is in fact the first country in the ESAMLAG region to have achieved this level of compliance with the FATF standards. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to also to inform the House that in addition to the technical compliance upgrade, the Assembly Council of Ministers has also adopted a project proposal from Mauritius for the development of an International Cooperation Review Group ICRG toolkit and methodology. Mauritius had, in fact, with the support of the EU AML-CFT Global Facility, developed and presented a concept note for the task force to start the project. The project will, in a good spirit of cooperation and collaboration, support countries in the ICRG process by utilizing the experience gained by Botswana, Mauritius, and Zimbabwe. With the aforementioned progress, Mauritius is now in the top tier of technically compliant jurisdictions. This demonstrates that Mauritius remains a credible and trustworthy jurisdiction. In this regard, having set up the necessary frameworks, the government is pursuing its initiatives to maintain Mauritius as an international financial center of repute. Mr. Speaker, sir, before I conclude, I would like to thank the Honourable Prime Minister, who himself chaired the Interministerial Committee on Anti-Money Laundering and Combating the Financing of Terrorism, AML-CFT, the members of the core group for AML-CFT, the members of the National Committee on AML-CFT, as well as the staff of my ministry and other relevant competent authorities for their collective efforts in bringing our framework in line with international standards and best practices. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Public Bill, second reading.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move that the Mauritius Food Standard Agency Bill be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's my honor and privilege to bring to this House the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill 2022. You will recall that on 5th July, the Food Bill 2022 was enacted to replace and repeal the Food Act of 1998. The Prime Minister, Honorable Pravin Kumar Jagannath, during his speech at the annual gathering of the heads of state and government group for the prevention of non-communicable diseases in New York last September, reaffirmed the commitment of government to introduce the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill to promote better food safety and nutrition in Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Food Act 2022 is a legislation which ensures the safety and nutritional quality of food available on the market. The enactment of the Food Act 2022 has paved the way for the introduction of innovative and forthcoming measures regarding safe food of nutritive value. The Food Act 2022 and the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill 2022 will complement each other. In fact, the Mauritius Food Standards Agency will be the think tank regarding the safety and nutritional quality of food available on the market. The ultimate goal being to ensure that people can trust that the food they buy and eat is safe. The Mauritius Food Standards Agency, the MFSA, will act as a one-stop shop cutting across the whole food supply chain from production to consumption. The MFSA will ensure that information regarding food safety and nutritional value of food are available both to food business operators and the population. It will act primarily as an advisory group body assessing and proposing food standards for adoption, as well as coordinating and reviewing the food control system. For instance, It can initiate researchers to assess the level of pesticide residues, which is known to have an incidence on the development of cancer in humans, in fruits and vegetables. Based on the findings, it can provide scientific and technical advice to the Ministry for policy decision. The Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill proposes a regulatory framework using as benchmarks legislative guidelines developed by the Food and Agricultural Organization and the World Health Organization, especially through the document Assuring Food Safety and Quality Guidelines for Strengthening National Food Control Systems. The regulatory framework of the MFSA will also consider food standard agency frameworks established internationally, including those of Australia, New Zealand, India, the European Union, and member states. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Prime Minister, Honorable Pravin Kumar Jagannath, announced in the Government Programme 2020-2024 that a food standards agency will be established. A legislative framework to govern this agency was worked out by a technical working group of my ministry. Members of the technical working group consisted of officers of my ministry well versed in food safety and nutrition, including officers of the Head Inspectorate Cadre and Nutrition Department. This legislative framework was prepared with the assistance of Dr. Dennis Bitnich, an Australian consultant appointed by the World Health Organization. He is the same consultant who was assigned the responsibility of drafting the Food Bill 2022 and was in Mauritius in August. He acted as a resource person in a workshop organized by my ministry targeting all stakeholders of the food business, be it producers, importers, exporters, representatives of consumers, as well as small businesses, to give their views on the forthcoming food regulations. We have already started a communication campaign focusing on the educative aspects to explain the new food law as well as the mandate of the Mauritius Food Standards Agency to all stakeholders. In the budget 2022-2023, provisions have been made for the setting up of the MFSA, and funds to the tune of 1 million rupees have been provided in relation thereto. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Mauritius Food Standards Agency will develop standards and procedures pertaining to the certification of halal and vegetarian food. These certifications will be of interest to Mauritians and tourists, and we are making sure that these standards, like the others, are framed according to the guidelines of the Codex Alimentarius Commission and on countries which have already developed such guidelines. There is no universal food standard agency. Each country adopts the main principles of the FAO/WHO to better suit the realities of its societies. It should be highlighted that this bill takes into consideration the applicability within the Mauritian legislative norms and has been prepared after consultation with key stakeholders in government, industry, and civil society to ensure that the adopted framework is appropriate and implementable. The bill has been aligned with legislative norms in Mauritius after consultation with the Attorney General's Office. While the enforcement of the Food Act 2022 will remain solely on the Public Health and Food Safety Inspectorate, the MFSA will provide the framework to improve our national food control system with the objective to better protect the health of our population. Ensuring a healthy population is not only the mandate of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, but also involves other stakeholders at the level of government, like the Ministry of Agro-Industry and Food Security, the Ministry of Blue Economy, Marine Resources, Fisheries and Shipping, the Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Consumer Protection, the Ministry of Local Government, Disaster and Risk Management, as well as the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development in varying degree and ways. However, this sometimes leads to problems such as duplication of regulatory activity, increased bureaucracy, and lack of coordination. The Mauritius Food Standards Agency will act as an umbrella, harmonizing all activities of the food business. Mr. Speaker, sir, the objective of the Mauritius Food Standards Agency is primarily to ensure a high degree of consumer confidence in the safety and nutritional quality of food produced, processed, imported, sold in, or exported from Mauritius. It aims at providing appropriate information relating to food to enable the consumer to make informed choices regarding food safety and nutritional quality. The MFSA also provides information to food businesses of different scales to ensure that they are compliant to the food regulations. The MFSA will develop or revise standards, having regard to relevant international standards, and recommend maximum limits for food additives, microbiological counts, pesticide residues, veterinary drug residues, heavy metals, processing aids, mycotoxins, and irradiation of food. It will also be responsible to develop guidelines for the certification of anybody engaged in audit of food safety management systems. Among the different functions of the MFSA is to develop regulatory requirements applicable to specific articles imported into or exported from Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, the MFSA will be responsible to develop procedures and guidelines for the accreditation of laboratories undertaking food analysis and compliance examination with the Food Act 2022. It shall also develop methods of sampling, analysis, and examination for the purpose of enforcing the provisions of the Food Act 2022. The Mauritius Food Standards Agency shall develop labeling standards for food claims on health, nutrition, and special dietary uses. It will also be mandated to carry out surveys relating to food consumption and prevalence of foodborne diseases. The MFSA will be responsible for the introduction of a rapid alert system for foodborne diseases outbreaks, and will also monitor and communicate messages on health, safety, and nutritional risk to the government and any external stakeholder. It shall provide appropriate training programs related to food safety and standards for every person who is or intends to be involved in the food business, whether as a food business operator or an employee. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Mauritius Food Standards Agency will be administered under the aegis of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, but will operate independently. The bill proposes an organigram for the structure of the MFSA comprising of an executive and a board consisting of 12 members. The board members will comprise of representatives of key ministries, departments, private sector, and consumer protection organizations concerned with food control. The chairperson of the board will be a person with wide experience in the field of food safety. The director will be an officer of my ministry holding a degree in food safety, food hygiene, food science, or an equivalent qualification acceptable to the ministry, and at least 7 years experience in the field of food safety. The board may co-opt representatives of other bodies to attend the meeting in case their contribution is needed on specific issues. Furthermore, the Public Health and Food Safety Inspectorate retains the core responsibility for inspection and enforcement of the Food Act and food regulations in force. Under this approach, the MFSA will be responsible for standard setting, while the ministry will ensure management functions. This will result in objective food control measures with resultant consumer and industry confidence, including trade partners. This approach encourages transparency and inclusiveness in decision-making processes, as well as accountability and implementation. It better equips the Mauritian government to align with international dimensions of food control, such as Codex Alimentarius, and ensure compliance with the World Trade Organization. Also, this approach is more cost-effective in the long term. Along the years, food production, supply, consumption, as well as food standards have evolved. Developed countries have devised their own food standard agencies adapted from the Codex Alimentarius of the FAO and the World Health Organization. The recently published National Non-Communicable Diseases Survey 2021 shows that 19.9% of the population aged 25 to 74 years suffer from diabetes. The high prevalence of diabetes among the population may partly be attributed to unhealthy eating habits. With the advent of the MFSA, the overarching objective is to overturn les mauvaises habitudes alimentaires des Mauriciens. This government, under the Prime Ministership of Honorable Pravin Kumar Jagannath, advocates a healthy population, and in line with worldwide best practices, my ministry is today laying solid foundation for a healthy population through the creation of the Mauritius Food Standards Agency, which I'm sure will inspire many countries who are yet to come up with such piece of legislation. I welcome the participation of MPs to open the debate and bring suggestions to this. I seize this opportunity to thank the Attorney General's Office and the Public Health and Food Safety Inspectorate of my ministry for their valuable assistance in the preparation of this bill. I thank you for your attention.
Seconded. Debate. Honorable Omia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to make one or two comments regarding the speech of the Honorable Minister, particularly regarding the campaign that he mentioned that has now been launched in an attempt for awareness for all stakeholders with regards to the parameters of the Mauritius Food Standard Agency bill, and I wish that had come before the enactment of the bill so that they could have participated with their suggestions and recommendations for same. I would also like, together with members from this side of the House, to thank Dr. Dennis, the Australian expert who has helped to enact the bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my views. At the outset, I wish to point out that such a bill is welcome. Particularly, it is hoped that it will bring clear parameters and regulatory guidelines as to food safety, operators of the food industry, be it domestic or international, and setting standards with regard to certification of different types of food consumed. Mr. Speaker, sir, food safety policies are designed to ensure that food production, processing, and distribution system deliver food which is safe and wholesome. However, complete freedom from risk is an unattainable goal, and food safety is related to the level of risk that society regards as reasonable in the context of and in comparison with other risks in daily life. Mr. Speaker, sir, the notion of risk and food safety. In assessing and managing risk, the agency needs to take every careful account of the expectations of the consumer, recognizing that in many circumstances, the public is unlikely to be willing to pay the cost of achieving maximum theoretical level of safety, whether that cost is manifested in higher food prices or in restrictions of freedom of choice. Risk assessment needs to be based on the best available methodology, drawing on expert scientific advice and making appropriate allowances for the inevitable uncertainties involved. Mr. Speaker, sir, where there are uncertainties about the scientific evidence, an element of surely political judgment is inevitably involved in reaching decisions on the best course of action. Where there is a risk of serious damage to public health, lack of full scientific uncertainty should not be used as a reason for delaying or postponing cost-effective measures to reduce the health risk. Where it is not possible to identify a safe threshold of intake in relation to identified hazard, any risk from exposure should be reduced to as low a level as it is reasonably practicable. Mr. Speaker, sir, in assessing costs and benefits, the agency will need to take into account the effects of its action on those particularly affected, the food industry, the stakeholders, the consumers, the enforcement authorities, against the background of its essential aim of protecting public health. This is a fine balance. And that balance, on occasion, it will need to balance the costs and benefits to different groups of consumers. For example, a product may carry a significant risk to a particular group, such as the people having an allergy, particularly gluten, which can be fatal, but little or no risk to the generality of consumers. In such cases, the agency would need to consider alternative options, such as the provision of advice and information. Mr. Speaker, sir, the expertise has a key role, and the right to be informed should be the center point of this agency. The agency will need to be able to call on the industry's own scientific and process expertise and to be trusted with confidential information about the industry's commercial development so that it has the maximum understanding of developments within its remit. Confidence is a key word in the enactment of this bill, in its purpose, and for it to deliver its goods. Confidence will only be achieved if the general public has access to information provided by the agency on its own activities, including the basis of its decisions and actions and the decision-making process itself. The agency must comply with legislations and code of practice of freedom of information, though it must have regard for legitimate commercial and academic confidentiality but must publish information where there is a clear need for this to be in the public domain. Mr. Speaker, sir, my intervention of this proposed bill for the setting up of the Mauritius Food Standard Agency today is pragmatic and with the aim to make constructive proposal to be able to achieve the goal that is giving all the stakeholders the necessary trust and confidence which has been lacking in the domain of food safety. The setting up of such an agency is laudable. However, I sincerely believe that it should have been introduced by the Honorable Prime Minister. Nothing personal against the Honorable Minister of Health. I explained myself. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am of the opinion that the bill should have been introduced by the Honorable Prime Minister so as to give all the impetus to this agency since it involves, as he mentioned himself, the Honorable Minister, so many ministries, from the Ministry of Health to the Finance, the Attorney General to Commerce, Agriculture, and as we can note from the number of nominees among the 12 that has been named on the board. Mr. Speaker, sir, the independence and the true independence of such an important agency is critical. It is also important that such agency is seen and also perceived to act independently and not tied to any vested interests or ministerial influence. Hence, I believe it should be a non-ministerial department governed strictly and solely by the board. I will quote, in the United Kingdom, the Food Safety Agency was prefaced by the then Prime Minister, Tony Blair. And I quote, it's a bit long, for too long, consumers in the United Kingdom have suffered from uncertainty and confusion about the quality and safety of the food they buy. The government is determined to do away with all climate of secrecy and suspicion. This fresh approach will help to command the confidence of consumers, industry, and our partners, as he quoted, in the European Union. But he went one step further, and that's what is extremely important here. He said, the agency will not be tied to any vested interests. It will have clearly defined priorities. It will be free to publish any of its advice to government. And if ministers decide not to follow that advice, they will have to explain their reasons to the public and the Parliament, unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, if such approach were to happen here in Mauritius, we will go far in ensuring confidence in all stakeholders, customers being first and foremost. The Mauritius Food Standard Agency should be an independent body, which should be powerful, open, and dedicated to the interests of consumers. The government has unfortunately not widely consulted all stakeholders. It would have found widespread support and, above all, added constructive proposals that would have transformed the way food standards issues are handled in this country. The essential aim of the agency is the protection of public health in relation to food. The agency's assessment of food standards and safety must be unbiased and based on the best available scientific data and advice provided by experts, whether employed, acknowledged, or should be invited in their own rights to give independently their opinion. Mr. Speaker, sir, the actions and decisions of the agency with regard to risk is very important. The agency must make decisions and take action on the basis that the agency's decision and action should be proportionate to the risk and pay due regard to costs as well as benefits to those affected by them and avoid over-regulation. The agency should act independently of specific sectorial interests. Mr. Speaker, sir, the agency should strive to ensure that the general public have adequate, fair, clear, presented information in order to allow them to make informed choices. In doing this, the agency shall aim to avoid raising unjustified alarm, c'est-à-dire crier au loup quand il n'y a pas de loup. Therefore, the agency's decision-making processes must be open, transparent, consultative, in order that interested parties, including representatives of the public, have an opportunity to make their views known and can see the basis on which decisions have been made. Mr. Speaker, sir, I will now comment on a few sections of the bill. Firstly, the functions of the agency. Section 5, subsection 1. I strongly believe the agency should not limit itself to the Food Act 2022, but instead might encompass all food-related legislation available in force in the country so that there is full effect of the powers of the agency without any ambiguity. Secondly, with regard to administration of the agency, Part 3, Section 7, subsection 1A, the chairperson of the board should be appointed by the Prime Minister in consultation with the Minister of Health, as this agency will deal with a national issue, the national food security of the country. Also, I note a very serious omission of the composition of the board. The representative of the Ministry of Fisheries and its competent authorities is not included to form part of the board. And I strongly recommend that they do have representative on the board, since we have such a vast maritime exclusive zone and we have a wide local seafood business and export processed seafood enterprises in Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, I will also make comment on the financial provision and account at Section 14 and subsection 2. Income from any other source approved by the Minister. I honestly think that details pertaining to a subsequent license to operate a food outlet, and if it were to be imperative to obtain same from the agency, should have been outlined, and details of a license fee, whether applicable, should have been given in the bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, the bill makes mention in Part 2, Section 4, subsection F, to develop standards and procedures for the certification of vegetarian and halal food, such other food. I am of the opinion that both the vegetarian and the halal sector should be looked in a very dispassionate manner. I would suggest the creation of separate committees to look into the different aspects. Government should create the legal and administrative framework for halal and vegetarian bodies to function, but should not indulge as a halal or vegetarian authority or body. We can seek the advice of the Indian, Singapore government for the vegetarian aspect, and the Sanha of South Africa and the Malaysian authority to help in the case of halal sector, together with certain well-organized certifying agencies that already exist in Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also recommend that the agency should have responsibility for coordinating research in the areas of food safety, nutrition, and consumer protection. The MFSA should also be made responsible for assessing regulated projects such as novel foods, food additives, genetically modified organisms for food and feed users. Mr. Speaker, sir, there should be, and I cherish this idea, a national food crime unit to look after all food fraud risks in the country. Food crime is too often sophisticated, serious, and always involves dishonesty. It will commonly involve a buyer, a seller misrepresenting one facet or another of a food product to a buyer. This might include its composition, durability, the country of origin, production method, and health properties. This concept has not been defined in the bill and must be a main function of the agency. Mr. Speaker, sir, the types of food crime that we have are numerous, but the main ones regard theft, illegal processing and on unapproved premises and unauthorized techniques, waste diversion, that is food that has been supposed to be disposed of back into the supply and consumer chain, adulteration, introducing foreign substances in products label, substitution, replacing food ingredients, and among others, misrepresentation, marketing a product or labeling it to wrongly portray its quality, document fraud to substandard products. We should not forget instances like that has happened in the past, melamine in milk powder, plastic replacing rice, and the latest horse meat in beef burgers. Mr. Speaker, sir, the agency must be held responsible for the systems that regulate food businesses and be at the forefront of tackling crime. The agency should also review the actual sampling strategy, introduction of a mandatory hygiene rating display, gaps that exist in enforcement powers, and follow the impact the National Food Crime Unit will have on food fraud. Mr. Speaker, sir, transparency may be the guiding principle for the MFSA and key to maintaining public confidence. The staffing should not be limited or include statisticians, analysts, researchers, enforcement experts, policy professionals, economics, and academians. The pace of technology and business change in the food system continues to accelerate. People have changed their methods. People have changed their manners. People have changed their ways of looking at food buying. People are buying food in different aspects. For example, via online marketplaces and through social media. These changes are affecting the way people purchase food and the way food business operate. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is also a continuing challenge to improve our national diet, so the food we eat helps us to live longer and healthier. Research shows that some of the people's biggest concerns about food are health and nutrition. People are very worried about food affordability and insecurity. The agency should consider the impact of these issues across the span of the work. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Food and Agricultural Organization under the umbrella of the United Nations is of paramount importance to foreign stakeholders as well as local businesses. I understand that the Ministry of Health has requested technical assistance from the FAO to assist and review the food control system in Mauritius, but as to date, the Ministry has not yet signed the MOU, and the said MOU, as I understand it, has been forwarded since June 2022. Such delay can only undermine our credibility and seriousness to work in partnership with reputed international organizations that fall under the umbrella of the United Nations with regard to food security. Mr. Speaker, sir, to conclude, as well as food security, safety, the agency should also consider other factors, such as animal welfare, environment, and economic impact. The advice the agency must give must come out of risk analysis based on science and evidence and not on wider political and public pressures. Whilst I do commend this bill, I sincerely hope that the points I have raised will be considered in a very objective spirit and any amendments ensued. Thank you.
Honourable Consultation.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for allowing me to contribute to this very important piece of legislation. We, on this side of the House, appreciate Honourable Dr. Omier's positive remarks that he's made on this bill, and I hope that during my intervention, I will be able to allay some of the qualms that you have raised during your elocution. It is also good to note that most of the points that you have, that Honourable Omier has raised during his intervention, are already being catered for in the bill brought to the House by my colleague, Honourable Dr. Kailesh Kumar Singh Jagatpal, whom I congratulate for him and his entire team for their study, the effort that they've made in the preparation of this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill is nothing but a logical step forward after the Food Act was passed in July this year, and is yet another concrete measure by this government just 3 months after, so as to ensure that our population benefits from adequate, safe and healthy food. Mr. Speaker, sir, the health of the people determines the wealth of a nation. The recent COVID-19 pandemic and independent as well as interdependent external factors prevailing at international level have made governments and heads of state realize the growing importance of food security. This government places a lot of emphasis on the health of our population to guarantee the safety of domestic food supplies, as well as food items for regional and worldwide trade. It is essential to build an efficient food safety system. Mr. Speaker, sir, the agency's functions lie at the very heart of the bill. The agency will play a significant role as the primary source of policy recommendations made to the Minister. The agency's general role is to ensure that the food regulatory measures are complied with, in addition to providing advice and scientific and technical assistance to the Minister. By providing unbiased and evidence-based guidance, and here it is perhaps the reassurance that the Honourable Omia was seeking, evidence-based guidance, the provision of which will assist people in making well-informed decisions. So they are going to be scientific and they're going to be research-based. Mr. Speaker, sir, the budget allocated to the health service is enormous and it keeps growing every year. However, it is more judicious, and I'm sure we all agree with that, to address the health services from a preventive perspective. We all know that we need to have a healthy lifestyle in order to stay in good health, and this also depends heavily on the quality of food that we consume. Our concern for the health of our population includes food safety. Excuse me. May I carry on?
Yes, please.
Our concern for the health of our population includes food safety as an integral component. Food safety, nutrition, and food security are very intimately linked. Food safety, Mr. Speaker, sir, cannot exist without an adequate control system and information sharing. It is well understood, Mr. Speaker, sir, that gender equity and empowerment of women are essential for lowering the incidence of foodborne illnesses. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, will foster strong customer trust in the nutritional value and safety of food that we produce, that we import or export, and most importantly, that we consume. The presence of foodborne illnesses as a result of excessive use of pesticides, chemicals, microorganisms, and parasites has affected and will continue to affect us if nothing is done. All stakeholders have an important role to play in educating and training our citizens to apply all knowledge associated with food safety into our daily lives. We know that we have a good number of women who are still taking care of a balanced diet, the health aspects and the safety of food being purchased and consumed, and these women are also very well aware of food safety issues. Mr. Speaker, sir, what I'm aiming to say that in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and to provide a better and a more sustainable future for all, food safety, including access to enough safe and nutritious food, is a key component. The SDG goal number 2 aims to, and I quote, end hunger, achieve food security, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture, end of quote. The success of the Sustainable Development Goal rests to a large extent on effective monitoring, review, and follow-up processes. To this end, the government's recent budgetary measures have been directed towards enhancing our produce, as well as a transformation in their agricultural sectors. Moreover, on several occasions, the Prime Minister himself has laid emphasis on the importance of stepping up our efforts to achieve self-sufficiency when it comes to food. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Prime Minister has, time and again, acted upon what he believes is right for the country. His first duty has always been to care for the health of his citizens, be it when we were going through the storm of the COVID-19, be it in the recent budget where the focus was on food security, and now today as we debate this bill on the Food Standard Agency. The government's vision has never been limited to immediate gains. This government's vision is that of long term. We can rest assured that through this bill, we are laying a strong foundation for a healthier generation ahead. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius has a liberal economy and trade policy with a trade to GDP ratio of 95%. In order to promote food trade, the quality of our food needs to be enhanced. It is equally important to ensure that domestic and international food regulations are consistent while maintaining high standards for both consumer and public health protection. For example, if a product is commercialized in Europe according to certain established standards, it can safely be consumed by our local population. The provisions in the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill are intended precisely to bring measures on local and imported food products closer in line with international standards. My point is that we cannot restrict imports. We must rely on the norms established internationally. Mr. Speaker, sir, from this side of the House, we are of the firm view that our people have a right to clear information so that they can choose their food with knowledge and wisdom. Transparency in the food supply equips the consumers to make informed choices about the food they consume and also respects their integrity and autonomy. The agency is not here, and let's not make any mistake about this, the agency is not here to impose upon the people on what to eat, but we're all aware that poor nutrition contributes significantly to bad health. Therefore, the agency is here to play an active role in nutrition policy. It will also encourage producers and importers to sell more quality products and automatically generating a conducive environment for trade by enhancing market access for those goods. Mr. Speaker, sir, according to the World Health Organization, women's and their children's health and development are significantly influenced by nutrition. I have in mind right now the nutritional risk factors for vulnerable groups, such as expectant mothers, pregnant women, breastfeeding mummies. The implementation of this bill's provisions is going to ensure that our women and children have access to healthy, nutritious food that are safe for their consumption, which obviously we all know affects our children's productivity, their academic achievement, their cognitive development. Mr. Speaker, sir, I can only praise my colleague, Honorable Jagapal, for again displaying his unshakable mettle to come up with a bill for the welfare of our citizens, and I would have hoped that Honorable Omia, being a medical practitioner himself, would have been the first to congratulate my colleague and acknowledge the scope of this piece of legislation. I think you did. You did. Well done, you. Mr. Speaker, sir, we must not see the array of measures taken by this government in isolation. For example, Clause 11 of the Food Act 2022 stipulates that samples must be analyzed and examined in order to help identify potential threats to the food safety, such as microbiological contamination, heavy metal contamination, as mentioned earlier on by the speaker before me, food adulteration, which was a concern he raised, and incorrect additive use. Mr. Speaker, sir, through the provisions of this bill, the agency may as well develop methods of sampling, analysis, examination for the very purpose of enforcing the provisions of the Food Act. It is evident that this bill is necessary in order to carry out the objects set out in the Food Act. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius being a beautiful and multicultural society has different dietary tendencies. Our food industry and our producers need to take this factor into consideration and never overlook the dietary preferences, requirements, and standards. For example, some people will not consume food of animal origin. Again, going back to what Honorable Omia mentioned, some people are gluten intolerant, glucose intolerant. I think celiac disease is what you're referring to. So people should be able to trust the products being made available to them for consumption. And this will be the agency's principal mandate to ensure this quality assurance. Mr. Speaker, sir, the food consumption patterns have evolved and keep evolving, and scientific research into nutrition is of growing importance. This is why the agency will be working in a field where sound science is crucial and where advancements are constantly being made. The agency has a general responsibility of remaining on top of new scientific and technological breakthroughs, as well as any other development that may be pertinent to its mandate. Mr. Speaker, sir, referring to the independence of the agency, earlier on, Honourable Omia made allusion that the agency might not be operating independently while adhering to good governance practices. This bill puts the onus of accountability on the agency and the ministry, and thereby the minister in Parliament, if ever there are parliamentary questions. So I don't know, I wonder where those vested interests that Honourable Omia were making allusions to, I don't know where they come from. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to conclude, and I wish to say this, that our government, this government led by the Prime Minister, Honourable Pravin Jagnnath, through a multitude of tangible measures, including but not limited to budgetary measures, this government is making sure that we have access to food that complies with food regulatory standards. This bill displays this government's dedication and commitment to making a healthy lifestyle our priority. The government's goals and guiding principles for promoting safe food are now more explicitly stated in the Mauritius Food Standard Agency Bill, and we are confident that this bill will give more strength to the control system for food safety. This, in turn, demonstrates our willingness to be aligned with the prerequisites of a high-income economy by matching our population's wellness to higher levels. I once again thank and congratulate my colleague, the Minister of Health and Wellness, for the undelayed introduction of this important bill to the House. Long live the Republic of Mauritius. I thank you all for your attention.
Honourable members, I'll suspend the sitting for 45 minutes.